So I think two words that come to mind when people talk about the Perikatan government in Kuala Lumpur now is, first is disappointment, the other is divided. So when people talk about disappointment, I think it was something that you referred to earlier. The COVID situation appears to be getting worse. The numbers of new infection appear to hover around the 4,000 mark. But the thing that really worries about Malaysia is that the numbers of deaths are also going up. Previously, Malaysia, the number of deaths were hovering around less than 20. Now it's sort of double up to 40 figure mark. On some bad days, it even goes up to close to 100. So I think people are really, really worried about this thing, and people are very disappointed despite the government given emergency powers with Parliament not sitting. Virtually, the government can do anything they want. The situation has not come under control. The second keyword, of course, that people are also looking towards the government to provide some sort of unity. But what we have is a really divided government. So we know that the biggest party in government, which is UMNO, is trying very hard, in fact, to destroy the government. UMNO earlier this year actually passed a resolution in its party congress, giving the UMNO leadership permission to pull out of government, forcing this current government to go for general elections. So these are the sort of the two keywords that people are talking about. One is disappointment, the other is a divided government.
So yes, indeed, a growing sense of frustration in Malaysia right now. Are people are hoping for intervention from the king. Is that confidence in the royal institution warranted or misplaced? Now, given, after all, that the king does have to act on the prime minister's advice.
Right. Well, it depends on where you're coming from. I think for the ordinary people who don't really understand the role of the Conference of Rulers, they see the king as the only institution capable of checking or keeping an eye on the government now that Parliament is no longer sitting. But of course, like you said, if people knows about the role of the Conference of Rulers, they know that the king cannot issue a political direction telling Muhyiddin what to do. Having said that, I think the Conference of Rulers is still a very, very influential institution. And I think what they'll do is that they will advise the Prime Minister on various things that he needs to do fairly quickly in order to regain the confidence of the people. You have to remember that when the emergency was proclaimed in January this year, it was proclaimed in the name of the Agong or the King. And therefore, I think the king is as anxious as most of the population in Malaysia that the government gets its act together. And here, of course, I'm referring to COVID-19, especially the vaccine rollout process.
Professor Chin, the Conference of Rulers is meeting tomorrow in KL, crucially a week after the king met with Malaysia's various political leaders. What do you foresee as a likely outcome for the COR tomorrow?
Well, what I foresee is quite straightforward. I foresee the king getting briefing from all the other 8 sultans. As you know, the Conference Rulers consists of the 9 sultans plus the 4 governors in states where there are no sultan. I expect them to have a discussion about the situation in their own individual states. And from there, I think they will form some sort of consensus. And once they get a consensus, I expect them to give a feedback directly to the Prime Minister. I don't expect them to tell the Prime Minister to step down or to form a new government. I don't think you'll see any of that. But what I do see is a very strong statement, probably pressuring the Prime Minister to recall Parliament. I think they want to regain their status as a non-political body because there were quite a lot of angry people with the Conference of Rulers. Many people felt that the king should not have agreed to the emergency proclamation. So I think they want to get back their status as sort of an above politics body. So they will probably advise the Prime Minister to reconvene Parliament. But other than that, I don't think the social media think you should believe it about formation of a new government tomorrow.